This episode was made possible by a joint effort by the California Institute for Behavioral Health Solutions and Advocates for Human Potential, Incorporated, and funded by the California Department of Healthcare Services, Community Services Division. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Dose. My name is Juan Jimenez. I'm here with Julian Olmos. We're substance abuse counselors here at Phoenix House. And today we bring you a different topic. And this is the stigma about medication-assisted treatment. And this MAT for short, you'll hear us using this interchangeably back and forth. Medication-assisted treatment is the treatment that is used for individuals that are going through opiate addiction withdrawals. And it enhances the complete treatment chart for those individuals. So introduce a little bit more about what the withdrawals, Julian. I like how you always describe it, with the examples that the clients used to give. Go ahead.
Yeah, so medication-assisted treatment, or MAT. So one of the biggest obstacles to opiate addiction treatment, is always the withdrawal. So if the thing about withdrawal from opiates is that it's one of the worst withdrawals of any substance. So whether you're taking marijuana or cocaine or anything, the worst withdrawal that you could experience is going to be the opiate withdrawals. One of the kids always mentioned that it felt like he was being squeezed. Like he felt like every single muscle in his body was being squeezed, like it was being crushed, like if his spine was like being compressed and pressed everything down. He said that it felt terrible, that he couldn't move, that it almost felt like the opiates were coming out of his muscles, like they were slowly being oozed out of him, that he had like trouble catching his breath, and it was the worst, that he never wanted to experience anything like that in his life. And that's one of the things about medication assisted treatment that has sort of like its pluses and its minuses, right? So on one hand, that's a terrible experience. That's a terrible experience that no one ever wants to go through, and that a lot of people fear. A lot of people who are on opiates, who are taking these medications, who are addicted to these medications, they're afraid of their withdrawal symptoms. So if withdrawal is such a big hurdle, such a big speed bump, such a big barrier for treatment, then it seems like one of the easiest things, or one way that we could help people find treatment, is by sort of removing that obstacle, or making that obstacle easier to overcome. And the idea behind MAT is that it makes that obstacle dramatically easier to overcome. So it has its benefits, it has its minuses. Like in the treatment community, some people, or in the recovery community, like in the anonymous groups, there is the sort of idea that withdrawal is a natural part of the recovery process. That because withdrawal is so terrible and you don't want to go through it, once you've experienced it, that withdrawal will help keep you clean. And for some people, that's true,
Yeah.
But the thing is that for a lot of people, that's also a barrier. And if we want to get treatment to as many people as possible, it seems like medication-assisted treatment is one of the better ways to go about this.
Yeah, and it's a package, right? That's why it's so successful. Yeah. So it's not only just medication, just because the title says so. It includes group support. It includes one-on-one therapy, and includes even, including the family into the support system that the individual is going to go through, because the family, I think, is also an important component. A little bit that I learned from residential days working with Julian. The family is one of the main support groups, because the individual is going to either live with them or interact with them more for the most part, and know they're gonna know what to do. For example, if he needs help or if he's on the verge of relapsing, what to do. So definitely, medication assisted treatment is a successful treatment. That's why it's gained so much traction. But also the accessibility. It has become more accessible, especially for the youth. In this from this point of view, we're talking towards the youth. We have programs in our, for example, in our Phoenix house, we do have programs that are able to help individuals get into this MAT.
Yeah,
So the resources are there available. Go ahead, Julia.
yeah. Depending on who you're talking to, what
Mm,
admissions counselor you're talking to, what grants are available at the time, depending on all those different factors, most of the time, medication assisted treatment is starting to become easier to get and easier to find. Um, it it's not like a guarantee. Like, I'm not saying it's available everywhere, but it is more widely available, and it is becoming more widely accepted. Like I said, depending on the grants, it's becoming easily accepted for ages as young as maybe 12 up to about 21, and then 21 and beyond after that. So depending like what age range you fall under, mat treatment is going to be maybe a little bit easier to get, but that all of that has to begin with the steps of being willing to go find treatment and then going to look for that treatment.
So now that we touched a little bit more of the components of how the whole treatment process works as a system, let's talk about a little bit more on, when what do parents think about for the most part. I think one of the main things that it's always when it's being offered, they'll always ask, "Is it training one addiction for another?"
Yeah.
And how does that go? How does that combat? Using, let's say, the individual's addicted to Percocets, and then the introduction to MAT. How does that work, Julian, for the most part?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that we've encountered, um, is why are you gonna give my son this or that medication, or why are you gonna give my daughter this or that medication if they just came off of Percocets, if they just came off of um, pressed Xanax pills, if they just came off of whatever thing, why are you gonna get supplement, or why are you gonna give them this other thing instead of
Mm-hmm.
that? And the reason is because the way that I like to put it is that it's some people refer to medication assisted treatment or MAT as a crutch, and I like that example in the sense that it's a crutch, but it's not a cane, right?
Correct.
So the way that I think about it is, if you broke your leg and you need crutches to get around, you're not going to keep those crutches for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're just going to use them as long as you need them. And then when your leg is better, then you don't need those crutches anymore. So in that sense, it is like a crutch, right?
Yes.
But the thing is that it's not like a cane. Like if you're like 80 and then there's something wrong with your leg and now you have to walk with the cane, and you're going to be using that cane for pretty much the rest of your life,
Mm-hmm.
that's different. So it's a crutch, yeah, but it's not a cane. It's two different things. And I've noticed that once you explain it to parents in a way that it, or even the people who are going to be using it, even the users, like, once you explain it, it's just a temporary thing. It's just to get you from point A to point B. Point A being, um, like, you're in your addiction, you're in your full like withdrawal symptoms and everything, to point B. Now you've completed a program. Maybe you've done 3 months of residential, and maybe you've done another 60 days of outpatient. Now you're down to like 1 milligram of methadone. Now you're down to point one. Now you're down to 0.001 or something. And depending on where you're at, it's all about like harm reduction.
Mm-hmm.
So you're supposed to get you're supposed to taper down. It's supposed to get easier and easier. As long as you're doing your treatment, as long as you're going to your groups, as long as you're going to family counseling, group therapy, everything, as long as you're doing all of those things, you are making progress. As long as the medication that you're taking is tapering down, you are making progress. The point isn't to be magically better. That's not the point. The
Yeah.
point is to get better over time, and that's what mat treatment is for. And that the stigma is like, well, he's going to be on it for a year, and sometimes that's true, you know. But it's also that, well, some of those people who are on mat for a year, maybe they were using for 5 years or 6 years or 10 years. um, it really depends on what situation the individual is going through.
So you just definitely touch base on one of the most important parts, which is how long is Mac going to last, right? And each person, like you just said, has an individual story or component how the treatment's going to work. And each system, each person, it's treatment is tailored to them, correct?
Yeah.
Depending on their drug usage, the length of time, and physiological. Our bodies are not the same. I
Right.
might be more, how can I say, be more sensitive to an opiate versus you might have less sensitivity. So we're all different, even though we're all one race, Homo sapiens. That's going to change. So there is not one definite answer, right? For example, if someone's going to ask you, how long is my son going to be and
Right.
treatment, because it's monitored, it could be short term or it could be a long term, right? And it all
Yeah.
depends on how the individual's gonna react to methadone, or what's the other medication that's used for opiate withdrawals? Uh,
I know methadone and Vivitrol
Control,
are some of the more popular ones that are used. I think that buprenorphine is also another
buprenorphine is the other one.
medication, but depending on what substance you're taking and what medication is going to be used for that substance and things like that. So it really depends on what I mean. Everyone is individual,
Yeah,
everyone has their own different case, everyone has their own different body, and it really depends on what you're responding to. It really depends on how you were taking your drugs. Were you taking opiates, like maybe you were taking an opiate in pill form, or maybe you were using injectable opiates? So that also plays a factor into what kind of mat you're going to be taking, or what kind of medication assisted treatment you're going to be taking or is going to be used for you. It all really depends. It's all very unique. And so some of the questions that are like, how long is Matt going to last? What does everyone think about it? Some of those questions are hard to answer
mm,
because it's like, well, to know what everyone thinks about it, you would have to ask everyone. Everyone's going to
correct.
have a different opinion. How long is Matt going to last? It really depends. Has this person been using opiates or alcohol or whatever for a month, or have they been using it for the last 24 years? It really depends. Like, there's so many different factors, and honestly, the best thing that you could do or to find out is really just to reach out to an intake specialist,
Correct.
to reach
And
out to a screening
like
specialist.
us, most of them, I think they have the patience to answer those questions. So, as a parent that's concerned, hey, what is my son going to take? Ask those questions. Do some research. And you could even call us. You could call any organization that's actually providing those services. And we've called a couple, and they're always very willing to give support and answers.
Yes.
So, before we close the sessions, we just want to review some of the services that are offered with the MAT treatment. Obviously, it's a medication component, it's a support component, a group support component, and a complete family component if that's available, or if the individual wants that too, that's also available. It's a complete package, and it could be you could add additional supports with like NA support groups that are external. They're not affiliated with MAT, but it's also a good support group to enhance the whole treatment program.
Okay.
So, anything else before we leave, Julian?
Look for help if you need help. Reach
Yeah,
out to people
definitely.
who can help you.
Definitely. So, we're here as a Phoenix House to give support, to find that help. And if we don't have the services, we will find you those services around the area, especially around here in the San Fernando Valley. So, thank you very much. We'll see you guys next time. Again, the help is there. Bye bye.